Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're taking a look at a Tag Heuer Carrera Calibre 5. The specific variation of the Carrera Calibre 5 that we're looking at is the date and time only watch. A super simple, classic, elegant watch. So we're going to go back in time now and look around the 1960s, which is when Tag Heuer released the Carrera, specifically in 1963. And that was around the time where lots of brands were releasing chronographs, actually really with focus towards motor racing. So for example, Tag with the Carrera, and also Rolex with the Daytona, Omega with the Speedmaster just before this, but really the Daytona, the Carrera, and a couple others were really focused towards motor racing and using that chronograph function and the tachymeter to time racing and time different motor races. So, and also to work out the average speed of a car traveling through a track or through a quarter-mile strip or full mile or half-mile strip. So they were really popular around that time with motor racing. The Carrera, extremely popular, great price point as well. And the great thing about the Carrera is the fact that Tag has really kept that same design all the way up until today. You can still see that same design in the case in the modern day watches as you see back from the vintage Carrera from the 60s. So that's a real brief bit of history of the Carrera. The Carrera has changed many times over the years. The real essence of the Carrera though is a chronograph, but Tag has added some new models into the Carrera line using that same case but adding some different complications to it. For example, the one that we're looking at today, the Carrera Calibre 5, is a very, very simple classic timepiece that really doesn't look anything like a driving sports watch. It's a very, very classic, nice, timeless, elegant timepiece, but they also offer watches that are far more complicated than this. This is actually the most basic Carrera that you can buy. So yeah, let's dive into the features of this watch and look what this piece is about. So we're going to start with the clasp as always. The clasp on this watch is really, really solid. Just bearing in mind this price point, and I'll continue to come back to the price point of this watch throughout the video, but this watch is priced at just over £2,000 retail here in the UK, and from us this watch is available for slightly less than that retail price. It's a fantastic clasp for a watch at this price point. The quality of the clasp is amazing. We've got this twin trigger deployment design, so it's super, super solid, incredibly secure. It's also quite low profile as well. Yes, the actual Tag logo area does stick out quite a bit from the leather, but not too much that it's going to stink too easily. It's much smaller obviously than an Oyster clasp from Rolex. Yeah, overall a fantastic clasp, very comfortable, extremely solid, not too heavy. Doesn't have the ultra high-end feel of like an Audemars Piguet or maybe even an Omega, but nonetheless it is a fantastic clasp that is brilliantly machined and incredibly solid because it features twin triggers. Moving now on to our bracelet. In this case we've got a strap. We've got a really nice brown alligator leather strap. Really simple strap, very, very comfortable, nice and soft and supple. I'm sure it'll soften up really nicely over time. A really elegant design actually. This brown combined with the silver effect of that dial and the actual watch itself being in steel. I love the combination of this on this watch with the brown and the silver. A really, really nice combo, super classic and elegant, and kind of has that motor racing feel about it. Kind of those vintage cars with the brown leather seats and the silver body. It just reminds me still, it still has a kind of essence of motor racing in the Carrera. Moving now on to our case. And this is really where we'll see the true DNA of the Carrera here. The lugs are very Carrera-esque and date back really to that original design from the 60s. Those big, fat, wide lugs, kind of tall as well. They're very boxy and sharp-edged, and every single Carrera in the collection features those same iconic lugs. You either love them or you don't really like them. Either way, they are totally the DNA of Tag. And the nice thing about this watch over the other watches, personally I'm not a huge fan of this sort of case design with the depth, the really deep lugs on this watch is not my personal favorite in terms of watch cases. However, because this watch is a 39mm on this example that we're looking at, it actually isn't as deep as the watches, for example, the Carrera Calibre 1 for example, that has much deeper lugs, that's kind of 45mm case size. It's much bigger case size. Those lugs have been scaled up to compensate, and because of this, those lugs just look really big and kind of a bit too cumbersome and not really elegant at all. Whereas because this watch is a much smaller case size, it actually appears much more elegant, much more classic, and those lugs don't really actually stand out at all. It's actually a really nice design. Yes, I prefer the more sleeker case designs of a Patek or maybe a Rolex Daytona, but nonetheless, this is a great little design on this watch. The case is made from steel. The finishing on the watch is all polished finish. One little side note is the fact that the finishing is not quite to the same level of Omega and of course Rolex. Rolex being a much higher price point anyway, so that's understandable. But Omega definitely finishes the watch at a slightly better level, to a slightly better standard. You can kind of see a little bit of orange peel effect on the polished surfaces of this watch, which comes from not the finest technique of polishing and also metalwork, but it's an incredible price point, this watch, so you can't expect the level of finishing that you see from a Rolex on a watch of this price point. So yeah, overall, really nice case, much better than, in my opinion, than the other much larger cases in the Carrera collection. In fact, I think this is probably the best case in the Carrera collection, in my opinion. All polished finish, like I said, wears really nicely, will suit a massive wide range of wrists because it's 39mm. It's edging more on the classic end of watchmaking and watch sizes, but it also will suit much larger wrists also because it features that deeper set of lugs, and also that brighter dial, that kind of white silvery dial means it wears slightly larger than maybe a darker dial 39mm. So yeah, cool case on this watch. A really nice sleek thin bezel, which means that the dial takes up most of the watch, which is a brilliant thing if you struggle to see or read the time. And that's something that's brilliant about Tag and IWC, is they tend not to put too much of a bezel on their watch, on their watches, which means that you can tend to tell, you tend to be able to tell the time actually a lot easier on their watches than other brands. Okay, so let's move on to the dial now. The dial is actually where I appreciate this watch the most. Tag is not someone I associate with, you know, attention to detail and finishing, you know, high-end finishing on watches. But actually this dial features a really nice level of finishing. We've got these batten markers, index markers, that are kind of faceted in their own way. They're fully mirror polished like the hands as well, but they're done in a really, really nice, elegant way. And they twinkle the light off in actually a much more interesting way than lots of other tags do. So I really appreciate that detail on the dial. Like I said, the hands are all polished finish, which matches the case as well. Our dial is a really interesting effect. It's kind of like these concentric circles moving towards the center of the dial. Really interesting effect that I've not seen on too many watches. And it kind of creates this more satin finish to the dial, which helps to contrast and really bring out and juxtapose those polished hands and those polished indexes, and really brings them out and draws out the detail in them and the shimmer in those aspects of the dial. So I really, really like that. And this concentric circles kind of create this sunburst effect if you get it in the right light as well. The great thing about those angular little index markers is they sometimes obviously show a shadow or a dark accent, and that helps to really pop them out of the dial and make them more legible. Sometimes when you have things that are very flat, polished, or satin, all satin on a dial, sometimes Audemars Piguet dials can appear like this, then it can sometimes be hard to contrast or find contrast on the dial and see what the time actually is, because it tends to blend all into one. Whereas this dial, because you've got those little angles to create those shadows and those highlights, it helps to create those differences, that contrast on the dial that you need to be able to tell the time. So yeah, really nice dial. I love the print on the dial as well. We've got kind of sporty accents on their dial with the Carrera writing, the automatic writing slightly sporty as well, and the Calibre 5 is very sporty. We also have our seconds indications around the very extreme of the dial, the very edge of the dial, again adding to that sporty feel. The Tag logo is slightly sporty, but the thing I really like about this Tag logo is it's the same color as the actual dial in that silvery grey effect, which kind of blends in, makes it much more understated, and really adds to that more classic, elegant, classy feel that this watch has. Our date window also is stepped down with a beveled edge. Yeah, really, really nice accent. Moving up onto the crystal of the watch, we've got this beautiful domed crystal on this watch. Really nice and classic, nice big crown as well to turn and change the time. And then just quickly flipping the watch over to the back as well, we've got a clear crystal case back on this watch, so we can see our movement, our Calibre 5 movement. Really nicely finished movement, obviously not going to be quite on the level of something like an Audemars Piguet or Patek Philippe. So, but that's not really why you buy this watch. It's just a fantastic everyday wearer for almost any occasion. And for this price point, what an amazing watch. You've got a clear crystal case back with a fantastic automatic movement, a beautifully designed case in steel, a very, very elegant dial, an elegant leather strap, and a fantastic deployment clasp as well. Overall, a fantastic timepiece for an incredible price point. I can't really floor this watch. At this price point, there aren't really many other options that you can go for. If you're looking at used, maybe in this price point, kind of around the £2,000 mark or just under £2,000, you can maybe look at some Omegas, maybe a vintage or a second-hand Speedmaster in not so good condition, or you could look at maybe a very, very old Rolex with no box and papers. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a new watch, I think look no further than this super elegant classic watch from Tag. Thanks guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think of this Carrera Calibre 5 from Tag Heuer. What other watches do you like in their collection? And let us know what other watches you want us to review in their collection also. And as always, if you're interested in this watch or any other watch in the Tag collection or a watch in the Swiss watch industry, then don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are in the description and also the end of this video. It'd be a pleasure to call that watch into stock for you.